Hey, Sean, I was having a conversation with my buddy David the other day. David is another video producer. He's a cinematographer, really a director of photography, and he does some like high-end corporate communications stuff and marketing stuff, but he shoots a lot of horror videos or horror films. And I shoot a lot more nonprofit stuff and corporate communications and the marketing side of things. No horror films. But we were talking about how with the same camera, he and I will produce different things. We will create different things. And it's that leads to something very interesting. All of my gear is gear that other people have. And in fact, I've purchased most of my gear due to recommendations of other people and research that I've done of other people using and enjoying the gear. And so when someone hires me and I show up with my Sony cameras and Sony lenses and small HD monitors and Atomos recorders, Rode microphones and Zoom audio recorders and Aperture lights, it's not really unique. It's not really special. So why hire me? Why not just send the gear and send it with someone else? And when there's questions about why my pricing is the way my pricing is and the sort of projects I get called on to create, what makes people choose me if it's not just, well, I've got good quality gear? It comes down to something that David and I had started referring to as experience and composure. Because the one thing that is a part of every shoot, every production, the one thing that's going to be an absolute constant is that something will go wrong. And it doesn't have to be catastrophically wrong, but there'll be some sort of problem that arises. And when these problems arise, it's always nice to be able to solve them. And that's where experience comes in and where, while solving them, composure comes in. I've made no shortage of mistakes. I've been a producer for 12 years now, and I've shot a whole lot of things. I've shot in 9 different states. I've shot with CEOs of Fortune 100 companies. I've shot in Africa. I've shot everywhere and in so many different situations. I've shot in Viking Stadium. I've shot in the middle of fields. I've shot in windowless rooms, and I've shot outside. Something is always not going to go according to plan. Some little thing's gonna pop up, and it's about how you solve these problems that makes you a good producer. You can have any producer come in with any camera and they're going to squeeze out an image that somebody can be proud of. You may need specialized sensors or microphones depending on a situation. More thoughtful lighting setups can always make a difference, but your ability to come into a situation and solve a problem is what really helps you stand out from the competition, and where when someone hires a less experienced and I'll say less honest videographer or video producer, because this honesty part is I make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and especially when I'm trying things that I've never tried before. And when I approach my clients and say like, oh yeah, actually this is something I've never done before, and we're probably gonna learn some things along the way, there will be some hiccups, and I always make sure that my pricing's fair to reflect that, and that I have a good team in place of people who can sort of help smooth those bumps out along the way. But when people have bad experiences with video producers, it's when these producers come in, they promise the world, and then things go wrong, and they say like, well, it just wasn't prepared. There was nothing we could do. And there's always something you can do. And I've been in a handful of situations, a lot of them my fault, some of them not my fault. And I've learned to solve little problems here and there, little mistakes that get made or changes in plan that come up, that I then carry with me and add to my repertoire of the next time something like that comes up. I'm just that much more prepared. So I wanted to walk through a couple quick examples of mistakes that have been made, be they my fault or someone else's, and how we solved them on the fly to make sure that we were still able to produce everything and finish the day like nothing went wrong. And the first is a general one. I'm not going to give a specific example of this, but there's always some time where you've left the right clip or adapter or connection or arm or something that you just have to fix with gaff tape. So always keep gaff tape in your gear, because you never know when you're gonna have to make a bird's nest of gaff tape to hold something together, to hold a microphone to a boom pole, to do something. Keep gaff tape around, because as I'm sure you're aware, there's no shortage of problems that you can fix with the right amount of gaff tape. So that's sort of the general one. But the next, I was shooting with Home Sweet Home. We were shooting this video and we were shooting their interviews, and I forgot to bring the little clamp that you set the boom pole in. I could probably pull it out of that case if I wanted to. I forgot to bring the little arm that you set the boom pole in so it holds the boom pole at the right angle and the right height so I can mount it on a stand and mic somebody. And I was working by myself, so I didn't have somebody who could hold the boom pole for me. I had to figure out a way to have this boom pole be held over the person speaking, and I didn't want to make a big deal and have the client know that I had forgotten this clip that is absolutely in my gear checklist, that absolutely should have been brought. It was just a mistake that it didn't get brought. So what I did was I took 2 light stands and I put the boom pole across them and used red whips, the little whips that I put on all my cables and that hold up pretty much everything around me. I clipped my boom pole to these 2 light stands with red whips, and then I adjusted the height of the front light stand to adjust the height of the microphone. And when they came out, no one really was looking for something to be wrong. Like, the mic was where it was supposed to be, and no one really noticed that, hey, I had forgotten a pretty important clip. But by being able to quickly find a workaround and get my boom pole on there, the show went on. There was a much higher stakes problem that happened 2 weeks ago where I was shooting in Austin, Texas, and we had a Sony FS7, big old production camera, and like a Panasonic XD cam or XC cam or something. I don't know, I'd never used it before, but like a big camcorder. And I had been asked to bring a tripod, and I brought a tripod. But what I did not bring was a base plate, because all of my cameras have base plates. I have like 15 extra base plates. Every lens that has its own foot has a base plate. My sliders have base plates, so that I can just have whatever tripod and slide on whatever I need to slide on without having to take a base plate off of one camera, put it on the next. I have base plates everywhere. So when asked to bring this, I didn't bring a base plate. And when we got there, it turned out that on their checklist, they did not have base plates as part of it. They assumed that base plates belonged to the tripods. And so we had one tripod of theirs with one base plate, and we had my tripod with no base plate. So what we did was, the base plate was attached to the FS7, which is the bigger of the 2 cameras, and the one that wasn't going to be moving around a lot. So I took the base plate off that camera and put it on the smaller camcorder that was going to be doing panning wide shots. That got mounted on a video head, worked like normal. And then I took the entire video head off of the tripod and just took the 3/8 inch screw, which the FS7 happens to have a 3/8 inch hole in the bottom of it, and I screwed the entire tripod into the bottom of the FS7. So I couldn't really move it or rotate it, but it did hold it up and steady and off the ground. And that was really what it needed to do. So it was an example of not something that you ever want to do, but it was a problem that came up, and we had no time. We had to shoot in like 30 minutes, so we couldn't like run out and buy a new one or find another producer and borrow one. We just needed a solution that worked then, and that was the solution that did. So it's these sort of problems that, when you're used to dealing with them, they happen on every shoot. And so when you approach them, if you can approach them calmly, and with a sense of composure, it goes a long way for both your reputation and the experience of the client. The client had no idea that we didn't have base plates and that our camera was screwed directly onto the tripod. And my other client had no idea that I didn't have the right clamp for my boom pole. But it's about learning to leave yourself a bit of time to solve problems. I've had one time where I forgot my SD cards. I always keep them in my bag, and they were on my checklist and stuff. And right before I left the house, I had taken them out because I wanted to put one more in that was in my computer. So I took it out, put it in my computer, did something, left the whole card wallet sitting right there on my desk. I get to my shoot, and I always budget myself an extra 15, 20 minutes just to make sure I have everything. And I used that 15, 20 minutes to go to Walgreens and buy 2 SD cards that I still use now. But by knowing that I want to give myself a little time to solve problems, I was able to solve a pretty big problem, which did involve going out and buying something and not just gaff taping or red whipping something together. So it's these sort of things that happen. And I would say the most important thing that I bring with me on every shoot is this bit of experience solving problems and a sense of composure as I do. And if you do those things, I think you'll find your clients are a lot more relaxed, and you'll find that you get a lot of business, because when things come up and you have to light things differently than you thought you would because somebody showed up at your location and you have no control over them, and the client planned to reserve the conference room and they didn't have it, you had to move everything, your ability to adapt in those situations is going to be what gives you that reputation as somebody who's easy to work with and somebody who produces something that the client's going to love no matter what pops up in the way. So that's my tip for this week, is spend a little bit of time reflecting on some of the mistakes that you've made or someone on your crew or the client has made, and go through this list in your head or write them down and say what went wrong and how did we fix it. And by keeping those things, in a good presence of mind, you'll put yourself in a place where when you're facing your next problem or obstacle or situation on your next shoot, you'll be able to pull from this Rolodex of problems you've solved before, and if nothing else, pull from the attitude of knowing that you've solved everything else that's popped up in your past. This one's probably not that big of a deal either. Thanks for watching. I would love to hear what mistakes you've faced in the field and how you've rectified them quickly so that the client was unaware. Feel free to leave those in the comments. I would absolutely love to hear them. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you later.